Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley. NCA has put out a video, a trailer here covering Sun Jian. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to just assume that you've watched the whole video, so we're going to mute this and just scrub through it real quick. And there's a lot of important information that's uncovered here. It's a short video, 2 minutes, but pretty epic. So the first thing is it starts us off zooming in on a burning city. So the historical context for this is that we are looking here at the end of the Han Dynasty, a dynasty that had reigned since 206 BC, pushing on now into the 200s AD, so a 400-year span. At the end of this time period, it's having a lot of issues, internal corruption, the countryside is mismanaged, lots of issues with drought, plague, famine, disease, all kinds of stuff in the countryside that goes wrong. And the thing that does push kind of the dynasty over the edge is going to be a massive revolt of the people known for tying yellow scarves around them, so it's the Yellow Turban Revolt. And that's one of the things that kind of precipitates the end of the Han Dynasty. With that revolt, a lot of warlords are called to rebuff them in the name of the defense of the Han, but what that does is it just militarizes the whole country. You have these warlords that gain power, and one of them is going to be Deng Zhou here, who's seen at the capital. What happened after the Yellow Turban Revolt was essentially put down as he was called to the capital of the then Han Dynasty, which is Luoyang. So you can see this one here by one of the major rivers. He's called in supposedly to try and quell kind of an internal faction of eunuchs within the capital, but he seizes on the opportunity to actually take control of the capital. He uses the emperor as a puppet in the process. So here he is at the capital. He reigns for a little while, but what happens is the other warlords raise a coalition against him. What you're seeing in this trailer here is him leaving the capital. So at this point, the coalition has put enough pressure on him that he feels he has to retreat, and in doing so, he's going to burn the capital and leave it behind. So that's kind of the backdrop of this scene here. We can also start to see some interesting things about the campaign. Lots of differentiation in the height, exaggerated features, learning a lot from the Warhammer world in terms of what you can do from the campaign map. So lots of vibrancy. Here at night, you can't necessarily tell so much, but you'll be seeing once we switch over to day, a lot of interesting things happening. We'll also be freezing this frame, a similar frame later on, to discuss different elements that are revealed in the campaign map. So for instance here, a very large, wide river, very navigable as compared to these other minor rivers. Lots of stuff to discuss about minor settlements and little details here and there. But for now, we'll allow the trailer to proceed. So there he is, like I said, leaving the capital, burning it. And what happens is, in the wake of the capital burning, the coalition forces do move in. The main force is going to be led by Sun Jian, the guy who is the focus of this trailer. So when he comes into the capital, what he's going to do is he's going to retrieve the imperial seal. So he sees all of this death and destruction around him. You can see he has a little bit of a tiger emblazoned behind him because he was known as the Tiger of Jiandong. So yeah, a nod to that. And then over here you can see as he's inspecting the burnt out imperial capital, he sees, he's very displeased by all this. Obviously, it's a big morale blow. But for his particular future, this is pretty important. What he sees, or what his soldiers do find in the ruins, is going to be the imperial seal. So that bears very high importance. So there you go, they're bringing it to him. People in the subreddit have noted out that this is historically accurate, that the imperial seal was known to have been chipped at a certain point in time, and then the chipped corner replaced with gold. So that's an interesting little tidbit of history included in this trailer. Cool to see that there. So yeah, this is the father, Sun Jian of, okay, there he is. He's being presented with the seal. But yeah, that's the father of the Sun clan, and they're going to be later on the ones who found the Eastern Wu kingdom, coming out of, the 3 kingdoms, the Eastern Wu being one of the important ones. So here we see, actually I want to scrub back a little bit earlier, because this is interesting. So as we're moving through the campaign map, this river is obviously different. It looks like it has the same texture that you'd see from the ocean. So what that implies to me is that armies and navies are going to be able to fast travel through this, which makes it very interesting. What does that mean for, well, navigation of the world? Obviously, these rivers being very important for that historically. So it seems like control of that is going to be very important for shipping your armies up and down. And then that begs the question, what happens when 2 armies clash in the river? Do we have special river battles? That has yet to be revealed. And then also, perhaps, if you have an army camped out on the banks of the river, can you block movement across the river? All kinds of interesting things happening there. And then can you hop on the river with any army? And then do you have to wait to build a fleet? All kinds of interesting stuff, but I really like how they're pushing the importance of rivers. This is one of the things that kind of bugged me for Thrones of Britannia. With the Vikings in particular, they were supposed to be able to penetrate deeply into the country, and what CIA did to represent that is they extended the ocean a little bit with these kind of like big bays, extended them into, well, inland, but never really in the sense that they did here, where it's really thick and it's going all the way across the country. So I think this is the way they should have done it, so I'm glad to see CIA fixing that. What you'll also notice is, well, roads across the countryside, those roads are going to have automated trade over them, so you can see a little bit of those there. And the countryside here having a lot of details, really down into the nitty-gritty. Trees, little rocks, and then later on you'll see villages, and then here some more people going off to conduct trade in various places, making the campaign map seem very much alive. And then here is basically Dong Zhuo moving the capital and the emperor, the child emperor, to what he's calling now the new empire's capital, Chang'an. From here is going to be his new base, and he's going to hold out for quite some time. He has Lu Bu at his side. He's brought a bunch of others to his side. So his coalition still stays strong, but eventually it will crumble later on. But for now, at the start of the game, he's going to be in power. Here depicted as being quite fat. In the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, he's known for a lot of excess. And this is a bit of a characterization. You know, anytime you want to make someone evil and, you know, characterize their abuse of power, you're going to show it with an abuse of, you know, material pleasure. So in this case, eating, etc., sleeping with concubines, stuff like that. So yeah. And then here you see one of the coalition armies with, well, awesome banners fluttering, cavalry moving forward in diamond formation with some of their leaders up through the front, probably some of Sun Jian's children there leading the cavalry forward, and then a lot of infantry in the back. So cool to see that. So here they come, couch lances coming in, and then they're going to crash into the other ones, hitting one another. And then here we get to see another view of the campaign. Again, lots of room for choke points and ambushes through here. I'm very, very happy about this. The huge differentiation of terrain, again, is going to be key for making everything feel so much more unique. The battlefields being much more than just the rolling flat hills that we saw in a lot of previous Total War titles. I'm very excited about this. So that's going to be cool. Again, a very navigable river seen on the left. And then this is where things get interesting to me. So let's pause here and talk a bit about this. So here we're seeing essentially the new province system. Again, we haven't heard too much about this, but take a look at this. A couple key things to point out. The big ones dotted across the map here are obviously going to be your, well, region capitals. So these are going to be big, kind of cookie cutter walled cities. It looks like they're all going to be square. I wonder what that means in siege gameplay, if they're all going to be the same square with maybe slight variations. But anyways, in terms of like how provinces are managed, well, this is going to be your capital. But take a look at what is going to be your minor settlements. This is what gets me very interested. Look at this. Here is definitely some sort of structure here, a little camp. I wonder what that is. Is that going to be part of like this province or this settlement's tile? Like, is this something where, oh, I have to build a farm? Is this the representation of that farm? Something that we saw back in the day with like Empire, where you had bits and pieces of your infrastructure scattered around outside the walls, making it vulnerable to attack? Or is it going to be kind of the way they did it in, again, Total War Saga Thrones of Britannia, where minor settlements were very limited in the pool of what they could do, and they were exposed like this and unable to ever construct walls? So this could be an indication of going one way or the other, but it is a departure from what we've seen in Rome too, for instance, where everything has the ability to finally get, you know, a little wall eventually. So this is interesting. Distributed settlements throughout. Perhaps some of the infrastructure being spread out. And again, here's a good example of it. So to me, that doesn't look like a settlement. That looks like an offshoot, like a little structure from a settlement. So to me, I'm edging more in the sense of this is a part of your infrastructure that's just scattered around and subject to being assaulted. So I'm interested to see how they're going to be reworking settlements. Another interesting thing that you can see here is what the hell is going on with this? Well, in the lore, or sorry, not in the lore, in the history, what they're talking about in the trailer as well is going to be, well, there's a coalition army. So this is going to be the encampment of that coalition army. So is this actually something that's just put together for the trailer, or is this something that actually happens? Can you have like a coalition camp that shows itself on the map like this, being different than just an army with its, you know, banner? When it encamps for a certain amount of time, is this something special? Does it have a special battle map? Does it have special campaign features? Can you plop it down anywhere? Very, very interested to see what this amounts to outside of it maybe just being something, just for the trailer. And then here you get to see them discussing a bit about how the coalition is starting to fracture once Deng Zhuo kind of leaves for Chang'an. The coalition then has kind of tentatively their main goal achieved, and then they start to squabble and try and seize their own seize their own area of China and consolidate it. So yeah, that's what we're seeing there. Of the different areas being then squabbled over and different people trying to vie for control. Here we go to the Southlands, and then you see a construction of a mighty city. And what they're saying in the trailer here is going to be, well, this is going to be a dynasty, the Sun dynasty. Sun Jian being the father, and then he has multiple sons and daughters, and these are then going to go on to found the Eastern Wu dynasty. One of the three major kingdoms in the Three Kingdoms period. So here's going to be their capital. So that's what this trailer is focusing on, which is pretty cool. And then here you zoom out a little bit. We're going to go ahead and pause this. So you get to see the Sun Jian there, the father, with his sons and a single daughter here. So this is pretty cool. I can't necessarily identify all of them. The one here that is pretty obvious is going to be Sun Quan. So she was well known, supposed to be very cunning and very formidable character. She eventually got married off, I believe, to Liu Bei. And yeah, so that's kind of interesting. And I think in the Three Kingdoms, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, it said that Liu Bei was kind of got a chill when he entered her presence. So she was very wise and shrewd, and she was married off to him in a political alliance, trying to kind of form an alliance of convenience between two factions. Because what ends up happening, well, I'll mention this also, an interesting thing about Sun Ren is apparently at some point she did have 100 female guards, all armed with swords, defending her in her chambers. So perhaps that's something CA may do in the historical version of this, give her a bodyguard that's maybe all female characters to represent that. In the romantic version, she's going to be an individual model, and when we're talking about individual models, well, look, they've armed her with a bow. So it looks like instead of being like a hand-to-hand specialist, she'll probably be a ranged specialist. So that's cool to see that she'll still be potent on the battlefield, but will do things perhaps from a distance with the bow there. So that's pretty dope. But yeah, the political alliance that I'm talking about is her married off to Liu Bei is going to be important because later on you have Liu Bei and members of the Sun family teaming up at the Battle of Red Cliffs to beat back Cao Cao. So that's going to be interesting. So that's kind of a bit about Sun Ren. And then here, I believe in the gold is going to be Sun Quan, and he's going to be the one who actually kind of leads the family after his father ends up passing, and he's the one who founds the Eastern Wu in 229, becomes the Emperor of Wu, and then kind of leads his forces at the Battle of Red Cliffs. So that's him. He could be the one in red. I'm not quite sure. I do get them mixed up a little bit. And then, of course, there's some other family members positioned here. I did try and pull up the wiki here for the various characters so you can see the different characters here. Sun Quan here being, of course, the Emperor of Wu. And yeah, and then you see Lady Sun Ren, the one we talked about. So these are the various children, a fair amount of them, not all of them being represented, I think, here on this pedestal, but we've talked about the two ones that I'm fairly sure about. The rest, I don't know too much, but I'm sure in the comments people will commentate on that. Let's get back into the rest of this trailer because there is still an interesting little tidbit here at the end as they do a zoom out and show us what the scope of the map is going to be. And again, they're the chip box. But yeah, zooming out again, I do want to once again mention large rivers cutting across. And while we're mentioning the large rivers, just for reference, that's the Yangtze, then the Yellow River, and then Zhejiang River down south. So it looks like we're going to have at least 3 major navigable rivers cutting across, which is going to be dope. So if we go back here, I believe if they're looking at any river, and if we look at, the foundation of the Wu, their northern boundary, I believe if we match this together, would probably be the Yangtze River. So, or maybe the Yangtze is a little south of this. I'm not quite sure on my geography. But anyways, the river being shown here, I'm pretty sure is let's check, the Yangtze River. I'm fairly certain that's what this is. So yeah, that's cool. And then again, look at this. We get to see the vibrant terrain. Let's put this on full screen real quick just so we can see it. So I love this. Tons of detail. And again, look at these little either minor settlements, or perhaps this does seem to indicate to me it's a little bit more developed. That does seem like a full town in and of itself that's spreading out a little bit further. But some distributed buildings very close to one another there. Yeah, I'm very interested to hear more about the campaign and how this turns out. And take a look at this, the rice paddies over here with some terrace farming. God, this map looks freaking beautiful. But keep an eye on this. As they start to peel out, we start to see the scope of the campaign. Ah, okay, there we go. So the Yangtze, okay, that makes sense. So the Yellow River over there, they did actually change it. So that's why it's so cloudy with the sediment up there. The Yellow River in the distance, the Yangtze, and then the last one, the third. So there we get confirmation of those three major rivers. And you can see just how deep they can go. So that is going to be very important to control to move armies past potentially these choke points in the mountains. So that's going to be cool. Oh, and take a look at that before they cut it out. This is going to be pretty key. Let's scroll back. Yep, there we get to see Taiwan. So that is interesting. Going to be included as well as the southern reaches of the Korean Peninsula, perhaps even stretching into Japan, although it's not shown here. I presume it's going to be cut off, but maybe in DLC they'll expand it. So yeah, that is pretty interesting. I wonder if they'll even push south and we'll start to get some more stuff. Let's pop into a map. I wonder, I mean, there we saw the edges of Taiwan. We saw the edges of South Korea. Perhaps we'll be seeing a little bit of Japan in the campaign map, but what I'm interested in as well is going to be, are we going to have an inclusion of Vietnam as well? Laos, China and Vietnam did have some ongoing wars. I believe it was the end of the Han Dynasty where it was the Trung sisters who came out and were a major part of the kind of rebuffing of the Chinese. But anyways, playing an important role in the south, perhaps even we can have some of their troops recruited as mercenaries, but that'll all be interesting. So yeah, that's all I got from this trailer. A lot of information that we've been able to extract from this, and good God, as we zoom out, we start to see the scope and scale of all this. I'm very excited for this. I hope you are as well. And yeah, definitely stay tuned for more news as CA is going to be confirming bits and pieces of what we've theorized here. But so far, so good. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.